Hello again, everyone. It's your good buddy Spider with another episode of Uncanny Media, the show. Ready to fill your eardrums with, whatever random nonsense comes to mind. Some of it's intelligent conversations, some of it's just me complaining, and some of it's stuff that makes you kind of go, okay. Which one of those is tonight's show going to be? I don't know yet. I've had a topic for the last two episodes that I've been meaning to do instead of what last week ended up being and instead of what I'm going to do tonight, but I just have not had time to do what I need to do to present it. And I'll tell you what that episode was supposed to be. I'm trying to do an episode on some new music that's come out over the last several months, towards the end of last year and into this year. There's a new KMFDM album out. There's a new Pussifer album out. I can't play samples from these on the air because I don't have the licenses for them. Because I don't do music licensing as far as that goes, and I don't want to get hit with copyrights and whatnot. But I was going to review them and a few other things, and I just have not had time to sit and actually listen to them all the way through. Like I've gotten bits and pieces, but I haven't finished either one of them, or the several others that I wanted to talk about. So once I do that, we're going to do an episode about some new releases that I'm interested in. But how are all you doing? How you feeling today? It's been an interesting week. It's been an interesting week since last week, where mostly all I had was complaints. I was grouchy. I was not feeling well. I was upset. I was irritated. I was had a lot of things on my mind. This week I'm feeling a little more free. I'm feeling a little bit less weighed down by things out in the world. And so we're going to talk about different things. We're not going to focus so much on grumpy, negative things. We are going to talk about some things that might be a bit serious. But we're not going to get into, some things that I need to complain about in as aptly named as the last episode was, Old Man Shakes Fist at Cloud. One thing that's good is that the weather is improving here in Ohio. You know me, we always gotta have a weather report because I'm an old guy, and old guys talk about the weather. The snow has started to melt. It's been mostly in the 40s the last few days, which has been nice. We had several days of just below freezing temperatures and single digits and just snow and ice and it was just really unpleasant. But the snow is slowly going away, and which makes it look kind of gross outside because everything's muddy and everything's a mess. It hasn't had the chance to dry out yet because spring is not here. It is still February. Okay, it is February. It's not going to get springtime anytime soon. Probably not till... Here in Ohio, we tend to have winter weather all the way through April and sometimes into May. We don't often get real spring until mid-May, till the end of May, and then by that time it's June, and then it's time for summer. So we don't get much of a spring in my part of Ohio. But we'll see what happens this year. I don't know. It's muddy and it's kind of messy outside right now. There are some new stuff. There are some new things other than music that I can talk about, because while I haven't been giving other people's music its due as I wanted to, I have been playing some new games. And this is an interesting sociological thing. that I'm going to get into. Because, let me find the guy's name, and you'll know what I'm talking about when once I get there. Okay, I've got it up here. Um, I'm looking at things. Don't mind me. It's a little quiet here for a second. Um, okay, so there's a new game out. It's called High on Life 2. Now, it's a sequel. I played the first High on Life, and I enjoyed it. It was fun for what it was, which surprised me because um, because I am not a fan of Rick and Morty, which is a TV show. If you don't know what it is, it's an animated TV show on. I believe it's on Adult Swim. I don't remember. It's on Cartoon Network. Maybe it's a cartoon for grown-ups because of the language and the violence and gore and things, and because of the jokes and stuff. I'm not a fan. I think that there's a really good story in there because some of the episodes that I've seen, there's really good. There is some really good sci-fi writing in there, but it's so overshadowed by the dumb jokes and the dumb dialogue and the unlikable characters that you just like. Just read me a synopsis of what they do, and then I think I'll enjoy it. Other than that, I don't want to watch any of them do any of it, and I don't want to see any of their dialogue, and I don't want to hear them talk about it. So I'm not a big fan of Rick and Morty. But the creator of Rick and Morty, who's a guy named Dan Harmon, and we're going to talk about him separately in a minute here. He founded a game studio called Squanch Games. And this was not High on Life. The first one was not their first game. I think it was their second or maybe their third. They had some other game about this alien who also had aliens in his eyeballs, and those aliens could talk and do different things, and you had to guide them through. I don't know. It was a weird concept. He's got a weird sense of humor, and he's got an interesting art style. If you've watched any Rick and Morty, then you know what I'm talking about. But he provided voices for the first game, High on Life, which I had fun with, despite some of the jokes were kind of flat and it was a bit much because they were, Rick and Morty-esque. But overall, it was an interesting, fun, dumb game with some good mechanics. In the intervening years since the first game came out, Dan Harmon got in trouble because of, apparently he did some sexual things that he shouldn't have towards other people. And he made an apology. But later on, apparently that same year, a video came up of some kind of comedy skit from when he was just starting out of him doing inappropriate things with a baby doll. But it was supposed to be a baby. And he was forgiven for that by Adult Swim, etc., etc., but he deleted his Twitter, and he's been kind of a pariah ever since. He was kicked out of Squanch Games. So he was not, and he was kicked out of Rick and Morty that he created, so he was not allowed to lend his voice talents. They had to go with new voice actors, I guess, on that show, which I guess they did well. They did some good copycats, and then they replaced some of the characters in the second High on Life game, which has just come out. Which is not a big deal, because I don't feel that his voice work is what made the game, but he had voiced some pretty central characters, and their absence is noticeable. And I think also he must have had some idea of what makes a game fun and interesting, because there are certain things lacking in the second one. There are things I like, and I'm going to get to those in a minute. But we're going to talk about kind of the bad things first. And one of the things is that there are sections that are very open world, where there's a lot of area to explore, like huge areas, with some stuff to find. But not much. There's huge areas with very little to reward you for exploring the huge areas. You just kind of look around and be like, okay, well, there's nothing really here, so I guess I'll just play the story. And the story is kind of just, a series of situations followed by some combat. And when you get to the combat is fun. It's intuitive enough. It's not anything groundbreaking, but it's interesting. Like the first one, the combat in the first one was more difficult, I think. And I don't think it's a matter of difficulty levels that you set. I think it's just because the first one was made a little better. Because in the second one, they just seems like in these big wide open areas, everything seems a little lifeless, a little hollow, the NPCs don't have as much dialogue. In the first one, every single NPC you would walk across, just random people in the street, they'd have something to say. Which can be annoying for some people, I know. But it gives life to a world. It gives life to what you're doing. You feel like, okay, you're a little bit more immersed. The immersion is there, as people would say. Even if it's just some dumb comment, just like you're walking down and you pass somebody like, oh, what's this? And they say something, whatever. It doesn't even matter what they said. It's that they acknowledge that you walked by them, The second one doesn't have that. Most of the people that you come across don't have any dialogue. They don't say random things. They don't say anything when you walk near them. There are people who you can interact with, and you have to press a button to get a series of dialogues back and forth. But there's no randomness. There's no just, oh, that was interesting, that's funny, or that's stupid, or that's silly, or that's whatever. That's disturbing. There's none of that kind of stuff. And the worlds are big. They take advantage of the processing power of modern consoles and modern gaming equipment to have these huge game worlds, and there's nothing happening. If you're not doing combat or following story prompts, then there's nothing going on. So that's disappointing. Before I get to the good stuff, I do have to point out one other thing, which was interesting. It surprised me for being a new game. And it just shows that the numbers some of the statistics you see on various streaming platforms aren't particularly accurate, right? I stream on Twitch, and then I send those videos to YouTube after the fact, right? So I get Twitch viewers, and then I get YouTube viewers, and some content does better, and some content does worse, and some does better on one platform versus the other. Sometimes on Twitch I don't get a lot of views, but on YouTube I get a lot because people are more interested there, and vice versa. For example, I'm playing Outriders, which is not a new game. It's been out for a while. Let me take a quick look at when it released so that we can give a comparison here. Outriders is from 2021, so it is a 5-year-old game. Okay? It's been out for 5 years. when I play Outriders on Twitch, I have a very steady crowd of people that watch every time. It's usually 10 plus. Which, for me, some people are like, oh, only 10 people? That's not very many. But, for me, I'm a small-time Twitch streamer. I only have 46 followers on Twitch because I didn't make Twitch my priority. I made YouTube my priority. And YouTube, I have, almost 3,500 subscribers. So, there's a bit of a difference there for me. I'm not going to complain about it. I'm not going to be like, oh, if I get 10 plus people on Twitch watching a video, that's a good portion of the people who follow me on Twitch. That's pretty big, That's a pretty big deal for me. That'd be like if I had 500 viewers or 500 subscribers on Twitch and 100 people watched per video. That's a big deal. That's a big percentage. So 10 out of 40, 10 plus out of 40 is not that bad. But I have a dedicated group of people that watch me play this 5-year-old game regularly. They enjoy it. They sometimes interact in the chat. And even just last night, I had somebody ask if they could join in, and they did. And I was like, yeah, sure, you can play. And we played a couple missions together, co-op. So, compare that with High on Life 2, which is a brand new game, 2026. It's got new graphics. It's all shiny. It's all, it's the new deal. On Twitch, it says Outriders has anywhere from 21 to 41 viewers across its entire platform of people playing that game on average. High on Life 2 has 1.2 thousand, etc., or more. It's substantially more. That's what it says there. But when I played High on Life 2 on my stream, I played it for 2 days on stream, and my views plummeted. They sank. Nobody wanted to watch me play that game. People preferred me watching me play a 5-year-old online cooperative shooter with very limited end game left. Once you finish the main story, there's not much left to do but grind out levels. And more people prefer watching me do that than watching me play brand new levels of High on Life 2 that I've never played. By a substantial amount. And I found that to be interesting. And it shows, I think, that the numbers on Twitch are not entirely accurate. I think there's a dedicated audience for older games. And I think a lot of people will tune into new games, but briefly. And then that's it. I think they prefer to watch you play older games because they like older games, because they enjoyed older games. And 5 years is not that old for a game. It's not like it's Super Mario Brothers or something like that from way back, like the original. But I mean, still, it's much older than the new game that just came out last week. So that's interesting. It just shows the way that audiences ebb and flow and kind of move around in these kind of things. And so you can't... And this is a pro tip. This is a pro tip for anybody who's out there doing streaming on any platform, on Twitch or YouTube. And I've said this before, I think. You can't always take the numbers at face value. Like on YouTube, I'll get bursts of subscribers in large amounts, and then I'll get some that trickle off over the weeks afterwards, and then they'll boost again, and then they'll trickle off, because a lot of people are knee-jerk subscribers. They'll be like, oh, this looks interesting, and they'll just subscribe without really watching your content, so they're not really a fan. They're just subscribing because, oh yeah, that's a game I'm interested in, or that's a video I'm interested in, or a product. And then once they get into it, they're like, oh, well, I don't really like this person, so they'll just unsubscribe. So don't feel bad if you lose subscribers, as long as you're gaining more views and subscribers than you lose, because you will lose some. People are going to fall off, they're going to lose interest, they're going to, but you can't cry about every single lost subscriber. You can't be like, oh man, my views are going down, just because that happens sometimes. It's just, people are fickle, attention spans go back and forth, and what's fun today is boring tomorrow. Okay? So I don't worry about that too much. But I did notice, because my views went horrible with High on Life 2, I didn't push my luck. I went back to playing more Outriders, and my views instantly went up on Twitch. So, there's that. Now, on to some of the good things about this game. In the first one, there were spots where you could sit in your home base, which was a house, and you could watch TV. And it was, since you're in an alien environment, then it's alien commercials and alien TV shows, and you could watch stuff with different senses of humor and whatnot. And in the first one, some of that stuff was funny, and some of it was stupid, and some of it was just like negligible. So, but there was a spot where you could go to a movie theater in the first game, and you could watch one of two different movies, which were real movies. It's real movies that have been out long enough that the licenses are cheap, and so they were able to say, hey, can we use the license to watch your movie in our game? And they're old sci-fi horror movies and things like that. They're just really badly produced with bad effects and bad storylines and bad acting, kind of like Mystery Science Theater style. One of them was called Demon Wind. it was good. And when I say the movies are in the game, it's not like you go and you sit down and you watch like a clip and then you're done. The entire movie can be watched in the game. It's like an hour and a half. You can sit in this theater, in the game, for an hour and a half of real time and watch a movie. Which I thought was great. I thought it was hilarious. And the movies are so awful that it's like, you know what, you can't help but sit there and watch. And they brought that concept back for the second one. There's two movies you can watch. There's Manborg, which is a classically bad horror science fiction movie that I think was done by Riff Trax. I think they did a riff of it. And then there's Spookies, which I had not heard about before, and it is a resoundingly awful movie. But you can sit in the movie theater, in the game, and you can watch these movies for like an hour at a time, or more, depending on the length of the movie. And so that's fun. I like that. I like that they included that again for the sequel. It's fun. Does it matter to the story? Does it help you advance the game in any way? No, but that's not the point. It's just fun. It's a quirky little sense of humor thing that I like that they added it in. The other thing that they did is in your own personal quarters in the second one, you've got your own private room. There's a TV that's tuned to 80s commercials. And there's stuff that I would see when I was a kid. Because it's kids' stuff mostly. And a lot of it is like the early days of laser tag. Before it was called laser tag, it was like Photon and something like that. And you had the helmet and the vest, and you had a little electronic blaster. And when you fired it, it would register on somebody else's chest unit or whatever. And they'd say, oh, I took damage, I'm out. Like kind of like paintball without physical contact of any kind. So most of the commercials are that. A few of them are about stone protectors, which I kind of, the phrase is geeked out. If you're from a certain generation, the phrase is I geeked out. If you're a wrestling fan, you can say I marked out. But stone protectors was a series of toys, and I think a cartoon with few episodes, not very many, and a comic book series, a limited comic book series. The figures were like the He-Man Ninja Turtle style with like the big muscles and limited articulation, but the heads were all troll doll heads with different expressions, with like different futuristic goggles and weird haircuts and things. So it was like troll dolls because they were marketed mostly for girls in the 80s. And it was troll dolls for boys. And I'm not making any gender statements here. I know it's 2026. People can play with whatever they want. I'm just saying this was the 80s, and things were a bit different back there. I'm not saying that that's good or bad. I'm just saying what it was. So don't be mad when I say this is for girls, this is for boys. It's not that I'm saying that that's what it should be. I'm just saying that's what it was in the 80s. Okay? Don't be mad at me. But yeah, Stone Protectors, and they all had, the story was, it was all these, like, these punk-style dudes that had found these stones that transformed them into intergalactic warriors, and then there was this evil troll guy that was trying to gather the stones for himself, and I didn't have any of the toys, and the only reason I knew about them, because I didn't see any of the show either, the only reason I knew about them was because years and years ago, on a free comic book day, which they have periodically. You go to any place that sells comic books, and there's usually a day. I don't remember what day it is each year. It's like how independent record stores have Record Store Day nationally, where on one day every year, there's exclusive LPs and vinyl records that you can only get that day, only produced for that day in super limited quantities. Well, comic shops and bookshops have a free comic book day, where you get a limited edition comic book that's not always connected to any storylines with anything, and sometimes it's not even of a major, like, I did get one that was Fantastic Four. So I have a Fantastic Four comic that's from Free Comic Book Day. But then another one that I got was a Stone Protectors comic, and it's the only one I got. It's up in my attic with my other comics right now. But I had a Stone Protectors comic book, and it was detailed how they became the Stone Protectors and what their mission became and everything, and that was it. It was just a single issue. Never got any more. The various hobbies I got into as a child, there were few of them that we had the disposable income for me to actually collect anything of. So comics was not one of them. We didn't have a comic shop anywhere in town. We had a place called City News in the town that I eventually moved to. But when I was a kid, it was like the town nearby in Ohio. It was Conneaut, Ohio. It was City News, and they had some comic books. It was mostly like news and magazines. They had a few comic books, and I went there to try to get Magic the Gathering cards. Because I apparently found out somehow that they had Magic the Gathering cards, and I convinced my mom to take me one day. And they had some things, not much. So we didn't go back, because there wasn't much for me there. But I did get some free comic books there. I think. I might have gotten them there. I don't remember if that's... or if I got them from someplace else. But I had a Stone Protectors comic book. And so seeing the commercials in this game was kind of nostalgic. It was like, oh yeah, that's great. The other thing that came up, other than the laser tag and the Stone Protectors, was Bible Adventures. Bible Adventures is a Nintendo Entertainment System cartridge, an NES cartridge game. It is a real game. It's in a black plastic cartridge rather than a gray. And it was available by mail. Apparently, you had to order it by mail. You couldn't just go to it, because it wasn't... it was, even then, religious stuff wasn't always just right there on the shelves for you to buy. It was the 80s and everything was cynical, but it was available by mail through an infomercial on TV for $44.95 plus $2.95 shipping and handling. You called a number and you ordered it and over the phone, and they would mail it to you. And my grandmother got me this game because my grandparents are religious people. I mean, I just have my grandmother. I don't have my grandfather anymore. But I mean, they're very religious people, which is not a negative or a positive. I'm not saying anything bad about it. I'm just saying. And my family was religious growing up. I'm less so. I'm very much less so now. I was kind of less so at the time, but I did my best. I did my best for a while until it became not a feasible thing for me, and I'm not religious anymore. I can't say that I'm an atheist, but I'm not. I don't go to church. I don't believe that there's an overriding, all-powerful deity waiting to greet me in some post-death paradise. I don't think so. Anyway, back to the game. She got me Bible Adventures either for my birthday or for Christmas or something. I don't know. I'm sure it was for something. Because my parents had mentioned that I was playing the video games, and so while she didn't know much about video games, she saw, oh yeah, this is a video game, and this is probably, you probably like this. And High on Life 2 on your little TV had original advertisements for Bible Adventures, and I freaked out. I was like, yes! I had to dig out the cartridge. I'm looking at it right now. It's over on the side. And while we're talking about it, let's go on a tangent about it. Because I played this game a lot. I had a limited selection of original Nintendo games because, again, we were not well off at the time. The games were expensive. $45 was actually kind of cheap for a Nintendo game. People complain nowadays about how the average cost of a basic Xbox or PlayStation game is around $69.99. It's $70. But that's that's very close to what they were at the time for new games in the early 90s, late 80s. Super Mario 3, I remember, was like a $70 game. So I didn't get new games very often. We had a series of Disney games, mostly because they thought, oh, you should share the system with your sisters. They'll want to play it. And they didn't play it as much as I did. Sometimes they would play with me, but not as often. But we had like a Little Mermaid game for them to play. And I ended up playing it because it was a game to play. I played that, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, DuckTales. They got the original Final Fantasy for my older sister because they thought, oh, well, she's, more mature. She might be into role-playing. And she didn't get into it, so I played it, and it was one of my favorite games. So I played whatever I could play because of the limited amount of games I had access to. And most of those games I have here still. There's a little wicker bin a few feet away from me where I have most of these games. And that's where I pulled out my copy of Bible Adventures to show the stream that it was a real deal. It wasn't just a fake commercial. And it has three different... It's like 3 games in one. It has a Noah's Ark game, a Save Baby Moses game, and a David and Goliath game. Now, the only one of those 3 that I was any good at was the Noah's Ark game. I finished that one multiple times. The other 2... It's like a typical kind of platformer thing where you have to fight off enemies and they'll throw stuff at you and you have a life bar and it's difficult. In Saving Baby Moses, you have to find him at the river when he's just a baby, of course, it's Baby Moses. And you have to carry him through an area where there's multiple stages. You have to go through multiple stages where there's like snakes and stuff. For some reason, you have to avoid the snakes, and you have to avoid the Pharaoh's guards and different things. I don't remember how that ends because I never got to finish it because it was too difficult. The David and Goliath, you have to fight off various wild animals and then Philistines, and then eventually you get to fight Goliath. I don't know if I ever finished that one either. But the Noah's Ark one was a bit different. You had 3 stages on that one. I think it was 3. It might have been more. It might have been like 6. But it would alternate between the first one you would find certain animals. You had to find 2 of each animal. And it was simple. Like the first one you just had to find cows. And you had to find different things. And the cows would just stand there and let you pick them up. You had to find pigs, but the pigs wouldn't stand still, so you had to chase them. In the second stage, you had to find food. So you had to find bananas in the trees. You had to climb these big trees and find bananas. You had to find coconuts. You had to find berries and different things. And then you had to find meat for the meat eaters, for the lions and the tigers. And then you had to find, like, the lions and the tigers, and you had to find snakes, and you had to find monkeys, and the monkeys would throw stuff at you. And you had to throw coconuts at the monkeys to knock them out, to pick them up and take them to the ark. And you had to, there was individual things for all of these. And the snakes would run away from you. They'd climb up the trees, and you'd have to hit them with the coconut to get them to be stunned so you could pick up the snakes. The horses, you had to jump on their back and ride around on them and then pick them up. So, I was good at that. But that's Bible Adventures. And so when I saw that in High on Life 2, I know it was just a joke for them because obviously the game is super, like... It's very transgressive, I guess you could say. There's all kinds of, like, sexual jokes, and there's political jokes, and there's anti-religious jokes, and different things. A lot of social commentary jokes that are meant to make people like, oh, I'm embarrassed about that joke, but it's funny, you know, that kind of stuff. It's shock comedy. But I was still stoked to see the commercial for it in there. I was pleased. It made me laugh. It made me feel good. It made me feel like a kid again. It's been so many years since I played the game. I need to get out my old... I have something called a Retron, I think is what it is. It's like it's a generic off-brand system that can play regular Nintendo and Super Nintendo games, and I think Sega Genesis games, and then you can hook it up to the TV, and it's got off-brand controllers and stuff. I don't know. But I have one somewhere, so I should probably try to play it. And I might even be able to hook it up to the stream. I don't know. With my my capture card, I might be able to stream it. That would be fun. Streaming Bible Adventures for the first time in like 20 years or more. I'm sure it's been longer. More like 25 years probably. Or longer than that, because I don't even know if I played it in high school. I probably was done playing it by then. I was playing my PlayStation and my Xbox, the first generation of each, by then. So it was Final Fantasy VII and various Xbox games. I didn't have Halo when I lived at home. I didn't get Halo until actually I moved out. And I got it used, I think, when Halo 2 was out, so it was super cheap. I don't remember. So High on Life 2. Is it a good game? I'm not finished with it yet, but I'm kind of inclined to say it's an average game. It's not... It is not as good as the first, which was not the most groundbreaking game of all time, and it's not a great game, but it was a decent game. So the second one is not as good, so it's below average. Once I'm done with it, will I replay it? I don't know. I like to replay my games if I enjoy them, and I'm not sure that I would enjoy another playthrough of High on Life 2. Not because it's, again, not because it's bad or because it's not torturous to play through. It's not exhausting to play through. It's not tiring. It's just not, it doesn't hold my attention as much. I'm going to keep plugging through it off stream to finish it because it's free on Game Pass right now for Microsoft Game Pass, which is why I played it. I didn't pay for it. I try to play more games when they're new on Game Pass first, and if I like them then I'll pay for them. But I don't know if I'm going to end up buying this one. Maybe. We'll see. If it drastically improves over the next several stages, we'll see how it goes. I don't know. Another thing that I am kind of excited about that I haven't gotten into yet, though, because I'm all about nostalgic games. I would love, and this is not where I'm going with this, but this is just another tangent, because, stream of consciousness. I would love for them to bring the original Wing Commander and Wing Commander 2 onto the Xbox and port them over. Oh, because I would play them so much. I played them so much as a kid. I loved those games. The original Wing Commander and Wing Commander 2. They were some of my favorite games of all time as a kid. So I'd love for them to do that. But there's a game collection that gets periodically updated. It's called Retro Classics. You buy the game, or it's on Game Pass, so you can just download it on Game Pass and just play it there. It's called Retro Classics, and you load it up, and it has an interface that has 20 to 30 old games from the pre-console days. So there's not Nintendo, there's not Sega or anything like that. They have Amiga, and they have Atari games, various things. One of the games is they have the Willy Beamish games, which were fun. You play a little kid who's trying to skip school to go see something. I don't think he's trying to see a concert. I think he's trying to buy a new video game or something like that. So he's trying to figure out how to get money, but also try to skip school because his grades are bad and his parents won't let him buy any games. And he has a frog that he wants to enter into these frog races. So you have to train the frog to win frog races. And it's got Mech Warrior and Mech Warrior 2. Mech Warrior 2 was my jam back in the day, living with my folks as a kid. Oh my gosh, I loved Mech Warrior 2. It's so dated now, like it's practically wireframe, but it was so fun. And I've played it since. I've played it since then with this Retro Classics, and it's so difficult to play with a controller versus a mouse and keyboard. It really is. I don't say that often about old games that have been brought back on consoles, because a lot of times it's a lot easier to play with a controller than it is with mouse and keyboard. But this is not one of those games. Mech Warrior 2. But one of the games that have been recently added to the Retro Classics lineup is Space Quest 3, which, I've spent so much time in that game. It's a point-and-click kind of walk-around sort of game where you control this. He's a space janitor named Roger Wilco, right? And there's a joke in there. Roger Wilco, right? If you get it, you get it. If you don't, then you don't. I can't explain it to you. It's funny because it is, and if you don't get it, then you don't think it's funny. But he's a space janitor, and he's had 2 other games previously where he's had to save the galaxy against space pirates or something like that. And the interface is one of those things where you move him around, and then it'll say, "Oh, what do I see?" Oh, you see a switch, and you see a mop, and you see a rock, and you can say, "Pick up rock." You have to type it in pick up rock, and he'll go and he'll pick it up. But if it's something he can't pick up, like the rock is too heavy, he'll say, you try to pick up the rock, but you can't. It's too heavy for you. And then you kind of have to look around and see, is there something that I can use to dislodge the rock so I can pick him up? And you got to put in the right syntax and all that. Space Quest 3 involved you having to rescue the creators of the game in a weird fourth wall thing. But they were aliens, and they were like translated into an alien appearance. But they were the creators of the popular Space Quest series of games, and you had to go rescue them from pirates. And they were trapped in a block of green jello, because everybody apparently thought green jello was horrible, and nobody would want to touch it at the time, in that point of the 80s. And in order to get them out, once you get to that point in the game, you have to type in "eat jello." Eat jello, and you eat the jello around them to free them. And it makes you kind of sick, and then you have to take like an antacid or something. I don't know. It sounds dumb. I know. People out there are like, what kind of weird Stone Age games did you play as a kid? And it's a fun game, and I'm looking forward to getting back into it. Especially the thermal underwear. To survive on Fleebelhut. The planet Fleebelhut. You have to wear thermal underwear because it's too hot. If you don't wear the thermal underwear, you burst into flame. And people out there are like, what? What are you talking about? What? You have to be there. If you want to find out for yourself I don't know if it's on other systems. I know it's on the Xbox, on Game Pass. Retro Classics is what it's called. And Space Quest 3 is the game we're talking about. They also have Freddy Farkas, Frontier Pharmacist. And if that doesn't grab your attention, I don't know what will. It's a spoof of old westerns where your character used to be a gunfighter, and then you had your ear shot off in a gunfight because you were too slow, and so you had to replace your real ear with a silver ear. Silver prosthetic ear. And then you don't want to be a gunfighter anymore, so you're a pharmacist, and you have to mix up people's medications. And this guy comes in for Preparation G instead of Preparation H, because it's the Old West, so it was G before H. H is modern and G is the... You get it. I'm laughing just thinking about it. And he's in love with the school teacher in town, and you go through the whole game trying to get her attention, and it ends up that she's the bad guy. She's the villain running the bandits who were trying to shake down the town. Such a shame. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. But this has been nostalgic. This has been fun. I have so many memories as a kid. From being a kid, I have so many memories of things that I enjoyed and things that I liked to do, like the games that I used to play, and I'm just scratching the surface of the different games that I used to play. Like, I used to play Doom 1 and 2 way back, Wolfenstein 3D, Spirit Destiny, Cybermage. Nobody remembers Cybermage, but Cybermage was my jam. Oh, I loved Cybermage. So many good games back then. Aces of the Pacific, Aces over Europe, Red Baron, the original flight simulators, the original wartime flight simulators were in World War I and World War II. All this great stuff. Plus the various Commodore 64 games and the Amiga games that we had. The Conan the Barbarian game where the booklet had you better not lose the booklet. Don't lose the booklet, because the way they did game licensing to make sure that you didn't pirate the game or steal it, you had to have the booklet. Because Conan the Barbarian, it was a side-scrolling game. Well, if you were just walking around in the city, it was just a top-down kind of you were walking around. But as soon as you got into a fight, it was a side-scrolling beat-em-up style. But in order to play it, when you first loaded it up, the old man from Conan would be like, oh, you need to solve the riddle of steel. And he would tell you, go to page 6 of the game manual and find the symbol in the bottom corner. And if you didn't have the manual, you wouldn't know what the symbol was. So you couldn't put that in to start the game. Clever, huh? You could guess, but it would change every time. Like every time you loaded it, it wouldn't be the same symbol. So if you guessed wrong, it would just shunt you back to the out of the game. And then you'd have to guess again. And there's, you know how many pages were in the manual? Like 50 pages, 30, 40, 50 pages. So there's a symbol on every page. So the odds of getting the right one were so ridiculously low. And Wing Commander was like that too, I think. I think Wing Commander was like that. Either 1 or 2 was like that. You had to have there was like a little folding partition piece that you had to find a code or something to get in there to play the game. And it wasn't connected to the internet. Like, they wouldn't verify it that way. Like, the game just had that in its memory. Like, it would randomly produce, okay, this is what you have to do this time. And regardless of whether you bought the game or not, you had to do that every single time. That was the old days. The old days. My dad had an Atari that had multiple things, too. He also had an old, it was a green screen computer where everything was green and black. And it had a disc of like 1,001 games. One of them was a Star Wars game where you had to pilot the Millennium Falcon through the... I don't know why you piloted the Millennium Falcon through the Death Star trench rather than Luke's X-Wing. I don't know why. But you had to fly it through and fight the turrets and things. And I never found out, because I was very young at the time. This is probably single digits when I was playing this. So I didn't understand a lot. I didn't know what the point was after you went back and forth through the trench and fought the various turrets. I didn't know where you were supposed to go from there. And there was another game on there where you were an elf at Christmas time. You were a Christmas elf and you were sneaking through this house. And I don't know what the purpose was. There weren't enemies, if I remember. There weren't enemies. But you had to run around this house. I don't know. I never figured out what you were supposed to do there either. Probably you were supposed to set gifts or something, or find gifts, or I don't know. This is 30 plus years ago. So my memory is a little bit shaky on some of these things. On the Amiga, or Commodore 64, we had a Star Trek game where it was 2 parts. One was like a grid, like Battleship, where you would have to fire off shots against Klingon ships or whatever, and you'd have to get the right targeting telemetry and make sure you hit them that way. If you just picked a random square, then it would be off, so you had to calculate things. But the other part of it was you were inside the ship and someone was trying to blow it up, so you had to find your way through a maze of corridors down to the engine room to fix the warp drive while a timer counted down, and I never managed to win that either. I always blew up because I didn't know where I was going or what I was doing. Good stuff. Bible adventures. That's what led to this conversation. Bible adventures. But we're getting close to the end already. Everything kind of flew by. I didn't expect the episode to fly by as quickly as it did. I don't know what else there's going to be to talk about for the next few weeks. I know I want to talk about these albums, these music albums that I'm going to be reviewing. I want to talk about those soon. But I don't know if I'm going to manage to do that. I'm working on my own music. It's late in the show to mention it, but I'm working on my own music. I have 10 tracks fully mastered for a new album. I have cover art. I only need to do 2 more tracks, which I'm finishing up the vocal work for those now. And then I will have a new Spider in the Hall album by summer. I meant to do that last year. And the concept and the work involved and everything, it just wasn't the right time for it. But this year, everything came together. I'm going to talk about that next week, though. If I can get the other stuff reviewed, so we can have a music episode next week, we'll do an episode about music, and I'll talk about my own. I don't want to get too excited about it now. I'm super excited about it. I am. But I don't want to get you too into it until I can talk about it properly. And maybe I'll even drop a track. I'll drop a new track next week at the end of the show. So you don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss it. I'm going to give all the details about the new album. It might be done by then. It might be completely finished by then. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But I don't know what else I'm going to talk about. There are various, news things going on, and I don't know if I want to get into too much of it, because a lot of it's kind of, and other of it's kind of, I don't want to say it's delicate, but people have opinions, and you know me, I don't like to get into an arena where I have to combat opinions with people. You know what I mean? I just like to talk, and I just like to muse about things and throw my thoughts about things out there. Sometimes I do have strong opinions of my own, and I say them unapologetically. I don't worry about what people think about them. But I don't deliberately want to go out of my way to start some kind of a hornet's nest and stir people up for no reason. Right? But that's it. I think we're going to be done. Tune in next week. I'm going to try to talk about the music stuff next week. I am going to give you the details about the new album that I'm working on next week regardless. So whether I talk about other people's music or not, I am going to talk about my music. And so next week, let's talk about my music. Let's talk about my music. To turn a phrase on its head. And with that, that's it. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you for listening. Tune in next week. Have a good night.